Aitah, I blocked my friend because I no longer feel comfortable with him, and talking to him is difficult for me. Edit. I have just realized that I attempted to keep everything gender neutral to maintain anonymity, and then I read the title. Yes, it is a male friend. I did not intend to appear misleading. I am using a throwaway account because I frequently use Reddit, and I am unsure if my friend does as well. For context, we are both in our mid-20s, and I acknowledge that this situation may seem overly dramatic, but that is why I am here. I feel it is entirely unnecessary for me to be in this position. Additionally, I am autistic and was diagnosed with complex trauma at the age of 21. My friend has denied having any sort of mental health issue and has indicated that they do not wish to see a doctor about it. This issue arose because, at the very least, I know they have experienced trauma, which they have mentioned. I will refer to them as A. In essence, I reintroduced this friend into my life after they abandoned me when we were teenagers. I have an unfortunate habit of bringing people from my past into my present. Initially, everything was wonderful due to our platonic honeymoon phase, but we began spending an excessive amount of time together, which negatively impacted our friendship. At first, I was worried because they insisted on calling me only for a few minutes after my work and again when they were going to bed, leaving me feeling neglected. The problem was that the quality time we shared was so minimal that I started to feel like those late-night calls were not even worthwhile, as if I were merely a task on a checklist, an obligation, or, even worse, a distraction while they prepared to hang out with their other friends. To address this, they adjusted their schedule, which seemed great. However, recently, their schedule has become almost excessively open, leaving me feeling entirely overwhelmed. A now texts me while I am asleep, greets me with good morning messages every single day, sends texts while I am at work, messages me after work, and continues to text me all evening long. They used to call me before work, after work, and at night, but I stopped answering when one morning they woke me up specifically to discuss something that had occurred the night prior, instead of allowing me time to process it. Additionally, they began asking me check-in-type questions similar to those posed by therapists, which is acceptable, but doing so daily made me feel as though I could not be trusted to care for myself. I am referring to inquiries like, "Good morning, how did you sleep? How was your workday? How are you feeling? Did you drink enough water? Did you eat? Good night, text me if you can't sleep." And yes, I understand that this comes from a place of concern, but as an independent person, it felt incredibly patronizing. What made matters worse was the fact that an answer was rarely sufficient. They always had a follow-up question. What made your sleep better? Did you drink enough water? What did you have to eat? Isn't it past your bedtime? I had a parent in my life who refused to parent me. As a result, I do not feel loved or cared for when individuals who are not my parents attempt to take on that role. Therefore, I established a boundary and informed that I felt as though they were parenting me, which I found uncomfortable due to their incessant questioning. Their response was to assert that they were not attempting to parent me. They simply care very much, and that is how their mind operates, and that is what friends typically do, among other things. Any concern I expressed was met with dismissal. "I'm not doing that. This is normal. No one else feels this way. This is unfair to me. I don't understand it. That's just how my brain works. I need to do it this way. I am the villain in this scenario." Predictably, each of these exchanges went poorly, and any communication skills I attempted to employ were disregarded until I eventually lost my temper with them. One specific incident that illustrates this was when I was up late dealing with a serious issue regarding another friend. I insisted that we remain on a call while I tried to sleep. I did not approve of my being awake and repeatedly questioned why I wasn't asleep, even suggesting that my wakefulness was the problem when I said I was engaged in something. So understandably, I yelled at them to stop. After that, I went to the bathroom, and when I returned, finally settled down, they started calling my name and wouldn't cease until I responded, which disrupted my comfort. The next morning, I was scrutinized for being unkind about the situation, and I wanted to talk things out. However, their interpretation of talking was precisely as I previously described. Any emotion they exhibited was merely a reaction to my feelings or responses, and it became so draining that I eventually stopped sharing my concerns with them. As expected, they insisted that I should express my feelings in real time, which is overwhelming for me, especially as an autistic person who does not always identify the problem as it arises and requires time to process. When I would express the need to take a step back, their first instinct was to text me about it. Here are a few instances of boundaries I feel were disregarded. Initially, they would share information about a band they liked, and I politely informed them that I no longer listened to them for my own reasons and preferred to avoid discussions about them. Almost immediately, like the next day, I received a video containing audio from that band. I reiterated my previous statement. I was also sent covers of their songs, and at one point, they insisted on discussing the band further. Whenever I needed to step back or take a break, they would continue to text me until I felt completely drained and lashed out. I admit that this was not the ideal response, but my blood pressure would literally rise with each interaction whenever I needed to distance myself or end a call. Just this morning, they did their usual good morning routine and inquired about how I had slept. I guess I made a mistake by saying, "I slept well," because they exclaimed, "Oh wow, I am so happy for you. Usually you don't know. Was there anything about your night that made it better?" At this point, I realized that I actually didn't know, so I corrected myself and requested that we not discuss me any further since they were asking questions to which I did not have answers. They immediately began interrogating me about that. As I mentioned, I asked them not to scrutinize my actions or attempt to explain self-care concepts to me, to which they replied, "It's just them caring." I reiterated that it is not caring to invade my privacy. Caring would mean respecting my personal space and boundaries. They insisted that it was simply something friends do and claimed, "They aren't asking that much." While I consider myself to be quite open sociably, their behavior has caused me to become reserved due to the numerous times my statements have been dismissed, my comments questioned, my interests ignored or belittled, and my feelings invalidated. I effectively became indifferent. Gradually, I stopped discussing my interests because I disliked their awkward responses, leading me to feel unsafe sharing anything. I began to realize we have very little in common, apart from a mutual love for writing and literature. However, according to them, the fact that this is our primary topic of conversation is also problematic. I think I also subconsciously recognized that harbored feelings for me that I did not reciprocate, as I started to feel nauseated when speaking with them. What truly disturbed me were their comments about my other friends. They were one of two friends I had from when I was 16 who re-emerged in my life, and I shared with them that it was amusing my friend had once told me to leave them when we were children. It is amusing because we were merely immature kids 7 years ago, and I chose not to heed that friend's advice. Their reaction was to ask whether I had any friends who didn't have something to say about them. They also suggested that all my friends were biased. It was baffling this incident took place 7 years ago. That friend holds no animosity toward a now. Another friend, whom I have known for nearly 4 years longer than affectionately refers to me by a nickname that combines my name with B, like Penny B. So, as I were preparing to watch a show or film together, I wanted to listen to my friend's voice message, unaware that I could hear it. We ended up in a genuine argument because I insisted, "They called you babe." Except they did not. Additionally, another friend of mine, a widow, shared a sweet status about their late spouse. After seeing this, I commented, "I like the nickname they have for you." I was left awkwardly explaining that it was just a status update and not a nickname directed at me. When the previously mentioned friend resurfaced, I finally had the opportunity to converse with them for the first time in 5 years since they had been long distance, and A's first question was, "Oh, do you have a crush on them?" A also asked, "When your friend returns, will we talk?" To be honest, I do not believe that is any of A's concern, and in any case, the answer is a definitive no. I am not so desperate for attention that I would fall hard for someone I barely know, for goodness sake. Then I revealed their feelings for me, but today they asserted, that wasn't a confession. They verbatim expressed that they liked me romantically. I feel as though I am losing my mind. I have consistently stated that I am not interested in a romantic relationship, and their advances make me uncomfortable. Therefore, I finally conveyed to her that I feel unsafe and uncomfortable in our relationship, which is why they have sensed a distance from me. I demanded to know why, but I cannot definitively explain it, and I cannot simply turn off my feelings. believes they can rectify the situation. I know that they cannot. I blocked them on one app because I required some space to work, and they immediately texted me on my phone, reminding me why I felt that my boundaries were consistently trampled upon. So, am I the antagonist for blocking my friend? I fear I may be, as I have not provided them with an explanation, and they seem to feel entitled to one. I feel guilty for not understanding precisely why I am uncomfortable, but I cannot pretend that I am not, which is what they wanted from me. I also feel guilty for withdrawing from them and spending time with other friends, and I am uncertain whether I am being overly harsh on myself, or if there is indeed an issue I need to explore within myself. Story 2. I scrolled through old Snapchat memories, realizing I've been unhinged my whole life. What if I am the dramatic friend everyone tolerates? I have been contemplating for some time whether I should even compose this message. I am uncertain if I am seeking validation, advice, or simply someone to tell me that I am not unreasonable. Could it be a personality disorder? I experienced a rather tumultuous childhood and emotionally unstable mother, a household filled with tension, and many feelings I had to suppress to survive. Yet, I believe I turned out fine, or at least I hope so. I have a job, I function, I laugh, and I maintain friendships. Recently, while scrolling through my old Snapchat memories, I quickly came to the realization that I have been quite unstable, dramatic, and generally unhinged throughout my life. I am referring to a gay boy, myself, surrounded by mostly girls in school, making sexual, or extreme, jokes for attention and generally being rather loud and theatrical. It is essential for me to clarify that I always had friends, both boys and girls, performed well in school, excelled in sports, and was generally well liked. I believe I was a good friend, and although I was both feminine and dramatic, no one was ever truly cruel about it, perhaps because I was seen as somewhat popular. I was also a top student, but in second grade, I confided in my sister that I wanted to end my own life. I did not feel loved, and I lacked stable figures at home. When my sister told my mom what I had said, my mom cried when she met me in the kitchen, and they took me to a therapist. I think I attended only 2 sessions, then never again, but how could the therapist truly understand what was happening at home? My mother emotionally abused my siblings and me, mostly me due to being considered hard to handle, but also because I stood up to her, while my father was somewhat absent. In fact, he participated in the abuse, both physical and mental, but it was always my mother who triggered him. He also left us alone with her for 2 full years while he served in the military in Afghanistan, which I suppose was his way of escaping the home situation. To summarize, anger, crying, joy, and laughter were significant emotions we experienced daily in our home, and we became accustomed to these rapid mood changes. We all simply hid in our rooms, hoping she wouldn't come searching for us. Now, at 25 years old, I attempted to seek mental help at 16 while in high school. However, the nurse at my school refused to refer me. I have never seen a psychologist, but I am 99% certain I have experienced clinical depression 4 to 5 times post-high school, lasting for extended periods. I consistently struggle with stability, procrastination, finding meaning and purpose, and self-isolation. I do have friends, in fact, many people are fond of me, but as the years have passed, I feel like my true self has been laid bare, and I have become known as the unstable friend with evident issues. I grapple with financial stability, impulsivity, and discipline, and the only reason I have managed to maintain my job, complete my studies, currently in my final year, and appear somewhat well off is due to sheer luck. A friend helped me secure my job. I typically manage to pull myself together before exams, but then I fail to retain the information because there are no consequences and eventually relapse. I doubt I could handle a full-time job. I also feel somewhat spoiled because my grandparents occasionally assist me financially, but that happens less often now. In my initial years at college, I used to drink heavily on weekends, but I would always feel depressed for days afterward, which led me to stop drinking after waking up one morning after being with a random older man and contracting an infection, no joke. I also spent excessive amounts of money and engaged in numerous foolish and reckless activities that I later regretted while intoxicated. Now, I have been sober for nearly 2 years. As a student, I naturally have a fair amount of free time. It is just unfortunate that I waste much of it lying in bed. For clarification, I am sociable and active now. I also work out and have a part-time job in addition to my studies. However, I have experienced periods in the past where I practically lived in my bed, and at the moment, I use it more than I would prefer. Sometimes I wish to do nothing but sleep there. Currently, the most troubling aspect of it all is that over the past year, after going through a breakup, I have recognized that I possess a rather dramatic personality, tend to lie compulsively, and often engage in unhinged behavior either for the narrative or because I know it keeps my friends entertained. I often embellish stories for entertainment value and find myself seeking a lot of attention in social situations. I feel guilty for relying on my friends for emotional support constantly, yet I sometimes catch myself thinking that I need to seek out new and better friends. I despise this mindset because my friends genuinely care about me. I have attempted to become an influencer multiple times with varying degrees of success. I went viral once, but it has always ended in disappointment, and I now feel embarrassed, as if the whole world knows just how mentally unstable I am, at least my entire hometown does. These are merely thoughts of shame, yet they continue to plague me. The only aspect I feel I have somewhat mastered is working out, but that has become a routine for me, and without a somewhat fit physique, I believe my self-esteem would plummet to near zero. I do not feel that my past defines me, but it would be nice to achieve some stability in life. I recently visited my doctor and explained my situation. He has often commented on my resourcefulness, but this time I cried and candidly shared more about my issues, though certainly not everything. Consequently, he applied for me to receive support from the public mental health service, essentially, more affordable therapy. I am unsure if I will be accepted, and it is not as though my life is crumbling in any significant manner. I am stable in many respects, so I understand why they prioritize those in real need, but this is also why I feel somewhat guilty. A part of me is delighted that I am finally seeking help, while another part feels ashamed for asking when I am clearly stable and intelligent and resourceful enough to know what is beneficial for me. This connects back to my concern about being dramatic. When I know how privileged I am, why can I not simply accept my circumstances and focus on the things I can control? While composing this, I called my sister and realized that I exhibit some narcissistic traits. Not to the extent that I would classify myself as one, but I recognize certain characteristics. As I mentioned regarding my friends, I often hold high expectations for others and for life, yet I fall short of being as caring as I would like to be in return. Whether it involves listening to someone, assisting with a task, or dedicating time for quality interactions, I struggle. People and friends generally have seen me in a favorable light, so I have not needed to put effort into maintaining friendships, as they typically invite me to spend time together. This situation has placed me in a position where I feel I can choose from the best, which is a distasteful sentiment to verbalize, but it is true. This is a trait I despise about myself that I am actively working on, yet I still resent that I think this way. I have also noticed that while I frequently reach out to others for emotional support, I have virtually no friends who contact me. I am uncertain about the reason for this, but I believe I am more of a talker than a listener and often find myself complaining about life. I know I must make the change myself, but at times, I feel incredibly disconnected. I strive to meditate daily, jot down what I am grateful for, and remain productive. However, at the end of the day, I often feel compelled to call someone simply to complain or discuss how life is going, and it often isn't good. My doctor has told me that I do not meet the criteria for borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder, but there are moments when I cannot shake the feeling that I possess some narcissistic and/or dramatic traits that may verge on a personality disorder. I take time to reflect, and I know I can be empathetic and sensitive. It is just that sometimes I feel incredibly selfish. If you have managed to read through this entirely, thank you. I am unsure of what I hope to achieve with this, but after speaking with my sister, we discussed some fundamental elements of a good life, such as a supportive social circle, physical fitness, and engaging in meaningful work, during which she pointed out that doing good for others generally leads to greater happiness. I am considering signing up for volunteer work, albeit I am unsure if I will actually be able to follow through. That is how selfish I feel. I do not wish for pity, rather, I seek unvarnished truth. What would you do in my position?